Snow had fallen silently through the night, and by morning the world was whitewashed into forgetting. The town of Bell Hollow held its breath beneath the frost. Each roof bowed beneath the hush of winter. Near the edge of town, where the prairie grass met the woods, a man lay dying. Clara Wren found him just past the old cemetery, his blood darkening the snow like ink in milk. He'd been shot in the back twice. His skin, though chilled to blue, was the bronze of river clay, and his eyes fluttered open only as she knelt beside him. She touched his shoulder gently, not to comfort, but to tell him someone was there. Someone had seen. The man tried to speak. No priest, no lawman, only her. She leaned closer, heart adrum. His lips moved, cracked and pale. A whisper rasped free. Tamakasant. Then his eyes turned to glass, still fixed on her face. Clara remained beside the body as wind stirred the bare branches overhead. Her breath fogged before her, slow and even. She did not cry, not because she wasn't grieving, but because the ache had nowhere left to go. The name hung in the cold like smoke. Tamakasant. She'd never heard it before, yet it rang in her chest like something misplaced long ago and now returned. Quiet, heavy, sacred. By the time she stood, the snow had covered half his chest. She pulled her shawl tighter and turned back toward town, boots crunching with purpose. The townspeople saw her return from the woods with a red-stained hem and eyes unreadable. They watched from behind half-closed curtains and pretended they had not seen. Bell Hollow was good at that. It was a town built on half-truths and what was left unsaid. Clara Wren, once the preacher's wife, was now just a whisper, the one who lost everything in the fire. They used to say she was holy. Now they called her cursed. Sheriff Eli Boone leaned against the post outside the jailhouse, arms folded beneath his wool coat. A man with a jaw chiseled by bitterness and a badge that weighed too much. He squinted toward her as she approached. "He's dead," she said plainly. Boone grunted. "Good." She didn't blink. "He died slow. He should have died sooner. Lakota war party hit a stagecoach last month. 3 dead, 1 girl missing. Could have been him. You don't know that. Don't have to." Boone shifted his weight, eyes narrowing. "You touched the body. I buried it." His jaw ticked. "You what?" "Gave him coins and prayer. No man should go cold into the earth." "Coins," he spat. "He'll buy hell a drink then." She didn't answer, just walked past him, past the gaze of 2 boys sitting on the barrel outside the saloon, past the murmur of Hester Rowe who muttered, "She's stirring ghosts again," under her breath. Clara's cabin sat on the outskirts, tucked against the woods like a secret. Inside, warmth creaked from the stove, and candlelight spilled gold across the worn floorboards. Her hands trembled as she removed her coat. A fire, she thought. Yes, but first the name. She wrote it on a scrap of paper. Tamakasant. Her hand shook with the effort, but not from fear. It was something else. Recognition, as if the word belonged to her, or she to it. She lit a candle for the dead man, placed it on the windowsill. The flame danced weakly, casting shadows across the wall. She thought about the stagecoach Boone mentioned. 3 dead, 1 girl gone. But it didn't fit, not with the way the man died, whispering that name not like a warning but a benediction. That night, Clara dreamed of smoke. Not the kind that takes, but the kind that calls. She stood beneath a blood-red sky, surrounded by ash falling like snow. And from the haze stepped a figure with long dark hair, face half hidden in light. He said nothing, only watched her, as if waiting for her to choose. When she woke, sweat soaked her nightdress and the candle had burned to nothing. In town, the talk swelled. The Lakota had been found dead, and Clara had touched him. That was enough. By noon the next day, Milo Jameson stood at her door. He was tall, sun-browned, and smiled with teeth that never reached his eyes. "Clara," he said with the same 6-wheat tone a man uses with a wounded dog, "folks are saying things." She didn't invite him in. He glanced past her shoulder. "They think you're helping them. Indians." "I buried a man," she replied. "You buried a killer. They think you're sympathetic. I'm not here to make them comfortable." Milo stepped forward, voice lowering. "You lost your husband. You lost your standing. Don't lose what little you got left." She looked at him then, truly looked, and saw the fear behind his threat. It wasn't about Indians. It was about her not needing him anymore. About her finding something truer in silence than he ever offered in talk. "I already lost everything," she said, and closed the door in his face. That night, she packed a small satchel. Dried apples, her husband's knife, a flint box, and the name. She didn't know what Tamakasset meant or where it would lead her, but she knew she was done waiting for fire to find her. She would walk into it instead. As she saddled her old mare, frost biting at her fingers, she felt something shift, some tether unknotted in her chest. Behind her, Bell Hollow slept in ignorance. Ahead, the prairie stretched wide, indifferent and infinite. And from the woods, just beyond the candlelight's reach, a pair of eyes watched her ride away. Not hunting, not hiding, waiting. The sky stretched endless above Clara Wren, a bruised dome of ash and pale fire, as if the heavens themselves held their breath. Wind carved through the plains, dry and sharp, worrying her cloak like teeth. She had left Bell Hollow 2 days before, and the silence between steps had grown so wide she feared it might swallow her whole. But the name pressed against her ribs like a compass star, Tamakasset. She followed no map, only instinct. The land felt older here, untouched and watchful. Sometimes she paused beneath rock ledges to eat, sometimes beside shallow creeks to rest her mare. She moved slowly, as if time were honey and each step through it mattered. At night, she read her husband's journal, the corners worn soft from her hands. His words were clean and kind, but they were always about God, never about her. Now, she sought a man whose name had no holy page, only breath and blood. On the 4th morning, she saw smoke, thin blue, rising behind a bluff like a ghost's finger. Her mare hesitated. So did she. Still, Clara slid from the saddle and began the climb, heart ticking like the slow turn of a music box. The smell hit her first: cedar bark, warmed stone, dried meat. Then came the silence, not empty, but alert. The cave mouth was narrow and ringed with brush. She crouched low and called out, "I know your name." Nothing answered. She took another step. "I don't want anything from you." Stillness. Clara hesitated, then set her satchel down just inside. "You were whispered to me by a man dying in snow. He said your name with peace." A shadow moved. Not fast, not threatening, just enough for her to know he was real. She waited outside, arms around her knees, breath misting in the air. Eventually, a figure emerged, slow, deliberate. A man, lean and tall, wrapped in fur and silence. His hair was tied back, his jaw sharp with exhaustion. A cloth wrapped his upper arm, crusted with blood. Clara rose but didn't move closer. Her voice was steady. "I brought salve and clean bandages." He said nothing, only watched her with eyes so dark they reflected back her own uncertainty. She extended her hand, palm up. "I can leave it and go." After a long pause, he nodded once. She stepped forward slowly, as if nearing a deer that might bolt. Their hands brushed as she passed him the small tin. That was all. She returned to her camp that night, not far, but out of sight. She didn't sleep, not from fear, but from something harder to name, a sense that she had just knocked on a door the world had forgotten existed. The next day, she brought water. The day after, she left a loaf of bread wrapped in a cloth. She never saw him take it, but it was gone by morning. The ritual continued. An offering, an answer, nothing spoken, nothing owed. It wasn't until the 6th day that she found him sitting at the edge of the bluff as she approached, bareheaded, his profile carved against the sky. He did not look at her as he spoke. "My brother died in Bell Hollow." She lowered herself beside him. "I buried him." A pause. "What?" Clara hesitated. "Because no one else would." He turned to her, face unreadable. "You're not like them." "No," she said softly. "I'm not like anyone anymore." She offered him a small tin cup of broth. He accepted it with quiet hands. The fire between them crackled. The tension eased like thawed creek ice. She watched the flames dance in his eyes, and for a moment, they seemed two halves of the same exile. Him for who he was, her for what they decided she was. "Tamakasset," she said. "What does it mean?" He looked into the fire. Silence song. Something in her chest tugged. A wordless, slow ache. Did your brother come to find you? A nod. They shot him anyway, she whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Later that evening, as dusk gathered its purple skirts, Clara asked, "Will you let me clean the wound?" He gave her his arm without words. Her fingers worked gently, and he didn't flinch. The gash was healing. Angry, red, but not festering. As she wrapped the linen, her palm brushed the inside of his wrist, and he stiffened, not from pain, but from the echo of touch. She looked up. Their eyes met. The stillness between them was not empty. It was filled with a fragile recognition of loss, of dignity, of lives torn by fire, not their own. "You have kind hands," he said at last. Clara looked away. They used to say that about my voice. It was the first time she had spoken of before. The church, her child, the fire. Words hovered at the edge of her tongue, but she swallowed them. He didn't press. Instead, Tamakasin added a piece of wood to the fire. Not a grand gesture, just enough to say, "Stay." That night the wind howled. Coyotes sang far off, and Clara dreamt of a cradle rocking empty in a field of gold. At dawn, the world broke open. She woke to hoofbeats, dozens, carving into the earth below the bluff. Tamakasin was already standing, his bow strung, face sharp with awareness. From the rise, they saw dust. Riders, blue coats, Sheriff Boone at the lead. Behind him, Milo Jameson, a rifle slung across his saddle. They were headed straight for them. Clara stood breathless beside Tamakasin. "I didn't tell them," she said quickly. "I swear. I know." But he didn't lower the bow. She turned to him, panic crawling up her throat. "They won't listen. They want you dead." His expression didn't change. "Then they'll come with fire." "No," she said, voice rising. "I will go to them. Alone." He turned sharply. "They'll take you back. Cage you again. I'd rather die with you than live silent." A pause hung, heavy with something unspoken. Then he looked away. "I will not run," he said. She gripped his arm. "Then let me speak." The hoofbeats grew louder. Dust curled like smoke. And without waiting for his answer, Clara stepped over the rise, into the path of fire. The ground trembled beneath the weight of hooves, the way thunder presses against a window pane before the lightning arrives. Clara Wren stood alone at the crest, her silhouette framed by morning gold, arms loose at her sides, heart hammering in her throat. Below, the posse slowed as they caught sight of her. Sheriff Boone, Milo Jameson, and at least a dozen men with rifles across their backs and just as hot in their bellies. She raised one hand, not in surrender but in pause, a quiet request. The horses snorted, uncertain, as if they too sensed something sacred in the stillness. Boone pulled his horse to a stop. Dust billowed. His eyes narrowed. "Step aside, Clara." "No." Milo rode up beside him, anger sharp in his jaw. "You protecting him now. I'm asking you to listen." "There's nothing to listen to," Boone growled. "We know he's up there. We know what he's done. You know what you want to believe," she said. "But the man who died in Bell Hollow wasn't a raider. He came to find his brother. That's all. Then why'd he run? Because men like you don't ask questions. You shoot, and you bury what doesn't fit in your laws." The wind caught the edge of her shawl, whipping it like a banner. Her voice trembled, but only from cold. Boone's eyes moved past her, toward the bluff. "He's armed. He's wounded. Wounded men still shoot." She stepped forward, boots crunching frost. "Then shoot me. I won't move." Gasps rippled behind him. Milo swore under his breath. Boone's grip tightened on his reins. "Don't be foolish, Clara." "I was foolish once," she said chin high. "I believed the town could grieve with me, that it would remember who I was before the fire. But it buried me, too, same as it would bury him." A pause. Boone said nothing. "I saw your wife at the church the night it burned," she added. "She turned her face away from me. She saw my son's cradle burn and said nothing." Boone's shoulders drew taut. A vein pulsed in his neck. "Tell me, Sheriff," Clara whispered, "are you hunting justice or ghosts?" The air grew thick. A hush spread over the riders, uneasy and raw. Then came a voice from behind the bluff, low, deliberate. "I'll speak." Tamakasin emerged slowly, unarmed, his movements fluid as wind over grass. The sun caught the edge of his cheekbone, and the shadow of the cave fell behind him like a past refused. He stopped beside Clara. She didn't look at him, but her body leaned slightly in his direction, an instinctive tilt born of shared nights and silence. "I did not kill your people," he said. "I do not carry war." Boone stared, jaw tight. "You expect me to believe that?" "No, I expect nothing from you." Then he held out a folded scrap of hide. "This was in my brother's coat. It is a map. He came to ask for land back. Not with violence. With paper. With peace." Boone didn't move. Clara stepped forward, took the hide, and passed it to him. "Look," he did, reluctantly. His brows knit as he read. Stamped with a seal. Signed by a federal man Boone knew by name. It was real. "You lied to yourselves," Clara said softly. "Because it was easier than shame." The men behind Boone began to murmur. A few shifted in their saddles. One spit in the dirt and looked away. Milo's voice rang sharp. "This proves nothing." They still attacked the stagecoach. But Tamakassin's voice, though quiet, cut through. "That was a different band. They are not mine. My brother came to warn Bell Hollow. He came with words. Not guns." "Liar," Milo hissed. Clara turned on him. "You'd rather shoot an innocent man than admit you were wrong." Milo's eyes flicked to Boone, seeking permission. The sheriff gave none. Instead, Boone looked at Clara, at the blood beneath her fingernails, the fire still lingering in her gaze. And for the first time, something in him broke, not loud, but deeply. A man wearied by the weight of his own justifications. He looked to Tamakassin. "You have no place in this valley." "I have place in the land," Tamakassin said. "Not your forgiveness." Boone looked down at the map again, folded it slowly. He turned to his men. "Go home." "What?" Milo barked. "You." I said go. No one moved for a long breath. But Boone's voice held iron. One by one, the riders turned, uneasy. Milo remained, red-faced and trembling. "You can't let them walk away." Boone stared at him. "They already walked through more hell than you'd ever survive." Milo spat, turned, and rode hard, shame flaring like a kicked stone. When the posse was gone, Boone nodded once at Clara, the gesture stiff, almost pained. Then he followed the trail back down, dust settling in his wake. Only silence remained. Tamakassin stood still beside her, as if surprised by the stillness. She touched his arm lightly. "You don't owe them your grace." His gaze held hers. "But I owe it to my brother." They descended the bluff together. Not hurried, not afraid. That night, she made a fire. They sat close, not touching, but near enough to feel the warmth shared between them. Clara watched the flames. "You'll leave soon." "I must." She nodded. "I'll stay." The quiet stretched long between them. Then Tamakassin reached for her hand, not to take but to rest beside. An offering. No words, just presence. It was enough. And above them, the sky let go of its last bruised light, the stars arriving not in triumph, but in gentle witness.